Do you know how easy it is to be hyped for a video game these days? Hype is fun. I mean, you show a world premiere trailer and people lose their minds. Keanu Reeves walks out on stage and everyone just explodes with joy. Like, it's easy to be hyped for a video game these days, which means that when you say things that are exciting, it can sound hyperbolic, but I just want to lay that out before I say that we saw Eternal Strands at Gamescom 12 days ago. And during that time, I've thought about this game at least once a day since then. It just is exactly what I want in a video game. It just hits that fun that I'm after. Because the possibilities within the playground that they are building are simply unmatched. You see, Eternal Strands is an action-adventure exploration combat game. You play as Bryn, you're a young weaver with a cloak, and you wield elemental magic. You're determined to recover your home, and you do it by just weaving different elements of magic together, along with some stabby, and you knock over some big killing creatures, and you make a kill quilt. It's great. And I know what you're thinking. It sounds fairly standard. Magic, swords, big creatures, fantasy world. Yeah, cool. The hook, though, is that new studio Yellow Brick Games is making all of those elements interact with each other and the world in a way that I've not seen that just is cool. If a monster goes to punch you and misses, you can freeze its hand to the floor. You can freeze its feet in place. Freeze its knees if it kneels down. You can set fur on fire. If it goes to throw something at you, you can throw it back. You can create a giant tube of magic that throws things, and you can just launch yourself into it and at the monster. You can climb it and stab it in the face. There's just so much going on, so much different moving parts of how you want to interact with the world and the environment. Like, it's like a Lego box of fun. And that's just exactly what I want in a game like this. Freedom of choice to interact in a way that you want to is what makes Eternal Strands stand out. You see, we were lucky enough to check out at Gamescom. We got to ask a few interview questions. We got to see a demo of the game. We're just going to show you that now because it's great. And I hope you enjoy it as much as we did. If you have any good comments, leave them down below. If you hate it, leave that down below. Go wishlist the game on Steam and just enjoy.
Ensnaring Blast, which is another kinetic ability, you'll see that it kind of draws things in, including yourself if you wanted, and other enemies, but you can also explode it and, detonate it, which is pretty fun. There's some cool synergies with the powers, so it's not like it's static. Everything is impacting the temperature, everything is impacting the heat and the cold of things, but also they interact in unique ways. So if, for instance, I wanted to make a giant flaming ball of fire because something is really, it spreads even more. Other options, of course, you can put it up higher, things like that. Kinetic Stream is one of my favorites because, again, everything is super climbable.
Can you end up killing yourself with Kinetic Stream by dropping things on yourself?
I mean, absolutely, yes. You have to be careful.
I feel like I'm going to die for that several times.
There's fall damage is definitely a thing, but there's ways to mitigate it by rolling and things like that. You can also, you'll find unique ways. But Kinetic Stream is an interesting one because it's kind of a stream of launching.
Like a cannon.
Like a cannon, but you can also throw yourself. Which is pretty fun. Or your powers. So if, for instance, again, fall damage. If, for instance, you wanted to throw some fire through here, if I can structure this perfectly, which I'm not always good at it, sometimes you can do a bit of a catapult through it, but I'm no power user. I did the wrong thing, which is okay. Ice is more of a utility than anything else, but it will make things cold, so you can do damage with that. You will make ice literally in the world. It can pin enemies down. It can pin individual limbs. So if, for instance, you have an epic that's kind of doing something with its arm, you can stick it down to the ground, and it will kind of dangle its leg and try and break free.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's the power of Unreal Engine 5, basically, and they call it physical animation. Of course, you can also pick up ice. So it's not VFX, it's literally a block that you can use. And finally, there's Frost Mine. So it's more of like a general AoE kind of, thing.
It feels like a lot of care was put into how the abilities and mechanics really kind of bounce off of each other and the combinations you can make with them.
Absolutely. That was I think the number one thing was the idea of these emergent physics-based powers that impact the world around you. Because even when you look at these banisters here, you can pick everything up everything here is breakable, flammable, destroyable, things like that, and they really wanted to make sure that people, it was encouraging the creativity of using the powers, as opposed to just being like, okay, you get the next power, and oh, okay, well, I'm gonna switch over to, you know, the new power I got because it's more powerful. No, they all have something to play, and you have access to all of them as you unlock them slowly.
I think that's really something that's important, is the trickiness of making sure that the first ability you get is still useful at the very end of the game.
So they give you 2 at the start, actually. So you'll have Ice Wall, which is that ice ability, and you'll have Weaver's Grasp. So you get to kind of play around with the ice, and you get to play around with throwing things. And the way that you get the other powers is actually by taking down the giant epics. So I'll start moving towards that. I mean, of course, there's minions, things like that. But I'll just kind of zip along to, again, my favorite. I'm sure speedrunners are going to love using this thing, just so you know. Where I was going to say, so the way that you get the new powers is you take down one of the 9 epics, and the epics are the big 25-meter constructs, which wander around freely throughout the world. There he is, so I'm going to go track him down. Each one of them has a unique power, and so again, given that there's 9 powers, each one of them corresponds with a different epic. To level them up, you also have to take them down in a unique way, which is called harvesting, but we explain that a little bit later in the trailer that goes live tomorrow.
So you've got the minions that are running around, and you've got the epics. Are they the only 2 sides of creatures that you're going to be coming up against, or is there kind of anything in between those?
Those are basically the 2 big ones. So you have these giant ones, which will be kind of 1 per zone, but they wander through the zones freely. So it's like if the day changes, then this one can pop up in a different map, absolutely. But really it's the minions and epics like this. I will say there's these arc, so they're called arcs. There's the arc epics, but there's also what we call evolved, so they're more like your creatures, like a fire drake, which is called the ash peak drake. Sometimes there's worms, things like that, that are a little bit more reminiscent of maybe Monster Hunter, for those that are familiar with that, that franchise. All right, so again, as we showed the ice, you can pin it right down to the ground. He won't be able to move his staff now. You'll see that he's trying. His foot got caught in it too, which is great. But you can climb right on top of it, just like Dragon's Dogma, a little bit like Shadow of the Colossus again. They're definitely not as large as the Shadow of the Colossus Colossi, but they're far more aggressive. So it's less of a puzzle-based thing and more of a action-packed, crazy adventure.
I think they're still very intimidating. My only thing about this one is I want to get on its head, because it's got that nice flat disc.
Yes, so there is a way to do that, which actually I can just throw myself on it, but it will go on fire. So there's ways to make it stop being on fire, but I think in this case it's actually not on fire right now. So it is an option to be on the disc. There's something that happens here for unlocking a specific power, but we can do that. Oh my gosh. I threw myself on the ground.
There's that fall damage again.
I know, there's that fall damage. It's really kicked in. All right, so we will freeze that leg again. The cool thing is that it really encourages you to climb all over the beast as opposed to just kind of in one spot, because it'll freeze up. Oh, there we go. It'll freeze up the leg if you've done enough damage to it. They, of course, will try to shake you off, so you have to, it's called latching on, I think. Nope, 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 nope. You caught me again. This is what happens when you talk and you try and demo at the same time.
People never really understand how difficult it is to actually be having an interview and playing a game at the same time.
It's even more different than streaming, I find. Like, with streaming, it's like, okay, like you're kind of reacting to the chat, but when you're interviewing, you have to kind of think more.
Yeah, because when you're streaming, you can just be like, oh, okay, I'm climbing it, and then you'll see a message and you get to react to it. Whereas here, I'm asking you insightful questions, and then you're having to go, ah.
And it's already a challenge to begin. So yeah, but the game is very action adventure oriented. Like it's whoop, stamina is done. You know what I'm gonna do? I am going to do this trick that I saw someone do earlier today, which is throwing a frost mine in here. Oh. Again, just to keep in mind, this is an alpha build, so of course lots to go still, but we are launching early 2025, which we're very confident in that date. We have no concerns whatsoever, but we're really excited because it's going to be our first game as a studio, but also we're self-publishing now, so it's quite the challenge, but one that we really welcome.
I mean, for an alpha build, it looks great. Like it's the combat's already so fluid, and there's already so much going on that isn't like, you know, you're not dropping through the floor, like, especially in a physics-based game like this. Like everything working smoothly and cleanly really needs to be there from the start, and it's really already, you know, like you were showing with freezing down his foot to the ground. I'm guessing also when he was kneeling, if you had been quick enough, you could have frozen his knee.
Absolutely. That's exactly the idea. So the nice thing is that when you take down specific pieces of his limbs, or their limbs, I don't know, it's the Archon's limbs, yes, you can absolutely freeze things down. We've seen the Ash-Peak Drake crash down when you put too much ice on its wings, things like that. You can tie down its tail so it doesn't fly away. It's pretty exciting to see what you can do with the systems.
That's incredible, and something that I never actually thought about in a physics game like this is weighing down a flying creature that it then just crash lands.
It is something I still to this day, like, this game has been in development for 5 years now by this extraordinarily talented team, but it's something I've never seen before. And again, see, okay, I'll try and get, no, I was too slow. Wait, maybe I won't be. Let's see, now his leg's sort of stuck, and also they'll limp around if their legs are kind of rock solid like that. So they react dynamically to kind of what's happening too, which is cool.
I love it. The freezing ability seems incredibly useful. It seems like a really great utility. It must have also been quite tricky to get that feeling right of like freezing something and getting it actually to like stay in place.
Yeah. There was definitely a lot of work that went into each power to also make it feel distinct, which I think is something that was very important to the team in general. I'm going to try to not take fire damage while I'm talking still. But yeah, there's a lot of options and opportunities for everyone. If you're a long-range player, like, there's ways to kind of be more precision-based with a bow, which I'm not always great at. But I've seen so many different play styles within watching people play testing the game and demoing the game that I'm really excited to see what people come up with.
It seems like of course, the amount of things that players are going to come up with is going to be way more than anyone can think of, because some people are crazy when it comes to stuff like this. But there's going to be a lot of people who I think go with Frost for up close and then using the kinetic, like that cannon and stuff, to just kind of support their ranged abilities.
Exactly. So yeah, I can't wait to see what people come up with. That player creativity is absolutely what we're hungry to see, and we can't wait to see more. But yeah, so that's a little slice of Eternal Strands. The cool thing is they stay in the environment. I have seen things slide off of roofs before, which is pretty funny.
That's great.
They leave great loot, and then basically the idea is you go back to base camp, or in my case, try to survive, and you can reforge your gear and all that good stuff. So yeah.
So if people want to keep up on the game as it progresses closer and closer to launch, is there social media that they can follow?
Absolutely. There's a QR code there, but you can also visit the website eternalstrandsgame.ca that has all of these wishlist links, all of the social links. We're on Twitter, TikTok, I say Twitter, X, TikTok.
It's Twitter.
It's Twitter. But Instagram, X, Facebook, you name it, we're around.
Also, Steam, as you mentioned, wishlist the game. Like, that helps out more than people realize.
Yes, thank you so much. And yeah, especially for our independent studio, I think it's really, it goes a long way. You have no idea how much wishlisting means. So yeah, thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for letting us check out the game. I can't wait to have fun in that playground.
Of course. Well, thank you. I honestly, I can't wait to see what people come up with. So yeah, thanks again.